This is Coder Radio, episode 70 for October 7th, 2013. Hi everyone, you're listening to Coder Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode's brought to you by our two fine sponsors, GoDaddy.com and Ting.com. I'll tell you more about those sponsors as the show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week for 70 weeks in a row is our excellent host on the East Coast, Mr. Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Woot!
Woo!
70,000 weeks of Coder Radio.
That's right, man. That's right. And I would say, out of all of them, this one's the hardest. I think it's going to be the hardest one because for like the last 4 or 5 days in a row, I've gotten like 2 hours of sleep tops every single night.
Welcome
I'm running on
world.
coffee alone right now, Mr. Dominic. Coffee alone. But, you know, sometimes that produces interesting results. And
Well, I hope nothing upsets you today.
oh, what could possibly... I might get a little ranty. And, you know, also, I feel like it also gives me the opportunity to just sort of preload. So everything's just going to come out in this episode, and then I'm going to publish this episode, and then I'm going to go sleep on the couch for 2 hours. That's my plan for today.
I think that's a good plan.
Ironically, we're talking about workflows today, and I just exposed part of my workflow, I think.
Passing out, yeah.
Yeah, so we thought... A couple of things have happened. So first of all, the topic of workflows came up between Dominic and I on G+, and we're like, that would make a good episode topic. And then also, you made some big changes this week.
Yes, I don't know how to say this. I would just like to thank everybody, my family, my friends. I'm sorry, that's the Academy Awards. I'm using Linux as my main rig at home. Get out of here. Thank you. Past me.
What brought this change on?
So it was a combination of things. One of which we'll get into the workflow topic about how Windows is it's just not for me in terms of the way they want you to do things. Nice. But also, I introduced a buddy of mine who's going to be doing some dev work with me to Linux, and his enthusiasm really just kind of gave me a kick in the pants.
I'll be curious to hear how you're doing Xcode under Ubuntu.
so that's the catch. That's the one area where I'm not, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that one. It's like, I use Linux all the time except for when I'm editing video.
Yeah, so I wish I could not use Mac because that stuff's, I don't know if you've heard, Chris, but it's a little pricey.
Yeah, it is. It is a little bit pricey.
And it tends to break. You know, it's kind of like it requires some sort of affordable care.
So let's get into our feedback for this week. So last week, now you know what would have been great is if we would have had a clip, but here we were. Michael Dominic reported that everybody needs to prepare themselves because there is a high likelihood that the Obamacare servers could be slammed under terrific load. And this was, of course, on the eve before they opened.
Yeah, I don't want to gloat, but I'm going to say, called it.
Yeah, you did totally call it. Yeah. And at least in my area, it's still down. Still having
Yes,
issues.
in New Jersey, it torturously lets you fill out the entire form and then doesn't work.
Ouch.
It's kind of cruel the way it currently works.
Analysts, you had a note here that says, analysts, IT experts question the architecture of the Obamacare website. It's full of bugs, apparently, but on top of all that, the government could not even hire a domestic contractor for all of it. I guess they hired a Canadian contractor.
Yeah, and that comes to us from SnakeDoc, who revealed that information. So what? Right? Like, you got to boost the whole thing. Obama's about the American economy, and they hired a Canadian company to do this.
Sometimes it takes a few good Canadians to get the job done.
They could have hired me.
So, okay, let me ask you this. Are maybe being a little too critical? Like, how do you launch anything like this that's like the responsibility is so massively distributed for it, and the demand is so high that millions of people are are going and visiting the site. Like, how do you really? What can you do when security is such a big concern? And I kind of feel like we all knew this was going to happen because it's the only thing that could happen.
So there's a few ways you can approach this. I mean, the stability thing, this is like when games that are online, historically World of Warcraft, right?
Sure, yeah.
From a profit perspective, it almost never makes sense to keep the capacity for that first week's uptake, right? Because you're going to have all that capacity laying around and you're
Right.
just wasting money.
And then you hear stories like, oh, World of Warcraft is shutting down servers.
Right. The problem is this is a mandatory thing for every citizen in the U.S. So I would think there's always going to be some demand, right?
Yeah.
And more importantly,
But
if it was important enough to make the law, I think it's important enough to pay a little bit for some servers, right?
Well, I mean, I completely agree with you there. And if it was a good architecture, they probably would have I don't know. Maybe some are using the CDN, some aren't. Maybe some are using caching, some aren't. Who knows, right? Each one could have their own implementation.
What's concerning me most is this document that SnakeDoc shared, or I should say, article that SnakeDoc shared, is that there's more. Where if this source is to be believed, and let me get you the name of the author. There's more wrong than just being cheap, right?
By Shannon Bagley on
So if
Reuters.
If Miss Bagley is to be believed, there are concerns in terms of security. Now, whenever you get one of these analyst posts, it's tough to. Are there really concerns in terms? You know what I mean? It could just be FUD,
Right.
but there's. This is.
What I think is interesting is when I zoom out, I look at this and think, well, this is really number one. This is the first time, but pretty soon, it just to me seems like so many government services are going to be online. And they will hit these kinds of problems too, especially when there's something new that's being rolled out. See, this one, like if you put the DMV online, or when you take fishing and hunting licenses and you put that online, that's not like all of a sudden you're opening up this new market, so there's a massive initial demand. So those don't suffer from the same initial rush. Now, what I think is going to be, honestly, the fact that we're still having troubles today is pretty embarrassing. And if we go later into the week, and if we're here next Monday and we're still having problems, now we're getting to that's ridiculous.
Well, yeah, for the federal government not to be able to resolve this is.
I guess they'll blame the shutdown, right?
They'll blame the Canadian.
We didn't have the staff. We didn't have the staff. That's what they'll
Meanwhile, they outsourced the whole project to a bunch of Canadians. Forced his asses. So what's concerning me is that this article, the security threat she seems to be talking about is a DDoS attack, which is kind of like the grade school security threat, right? Sure, they take your site offline, but that's it. I would be more concerned with, I think, what do you guys call it on TechSnap? The unknown persistent threat, right? So someone compromising the box or compromising the platform and actually just monitoring and siphoning off data.
Right.
Because this has people's social security numbers, full names, birthdays, addresses, basically everything you need to take out a credit card or a mortgage in someone's name.
This thing's going to have a huge target painted on its back.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Johnny down at the high school DDoSing it, okay, right, who cares? I don't know, maybe I'm going to piss off our anonymous friends.
I think what you're going to have is an ongoing cost. This is, security isn't just something once you build it. It's especially on a high value target. It's an ongoing new exploits constantly. So they're always going to be paying somebody to fix it up.
Well, we keep seeing these attacks with like the low orbit ion cannon, and I'm like, yes, it will be annoying for the government, but it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, frankly, that's the script kiddie way of doing things.
I guess maybe this is partially the benefit in some regards that it is a dispersed system where different states have different exchanges, because maybe that makes it a little harder to attack.
So I'm starting to question if they really do have how different it is at an architectural level.
I don't know. Yeah, is it all
if the whole thing went down? Are they is there? It could be different application layers for each state, but is it one massive DB?
No, I think what's happening is sort of a misunderstanding on the reporter's side. So there's like, health.gov or whatever it is, healthcare.gov or whatever it is. That's just a landing page where you put in your zip code or whatever, or you select your state, and then they just forward you to your state's exchange. So that is going down constantly. But like we called it last week, of course that's going to go down. But then individual state exchanges aren't necessarily down.
So the issue that I'm trying to figure out is, obviously this is web applications. You have the application layer and the database layer. Are these state databases also interacting with a larger nationwide database?
I don't think so, but I have no idea.
Because if that's where if they were, that would be probably the weakest point.
Yeah,
right?
That's the soft spot, or at least the high value spot.
Well, certainly the high value, but also in terms of DDoS and in terms of simply running out of resources and crashing. Right.
Hello, everybody.
He just butts in sometimes.
I don't know what this is written in, and I kind of did a view source. I was hoping I could glean some stuff from it. But
Mr. Dominic, open up, please. We detected you hacking.
Whoops, not again. Broadcasting live from federal prison.
We'd have that little interruption that says that this call is being recorded.
5 minutes. That's okay. Me and my buddy Bradley can chill together. That'd be great.
Mr. Manning.
Mr. Manning himself. Yeah.
No. It's what did I forget what the new name? He has it. She is a she now, and I can't remember the name. Is it Patricia? I can't believe I'm blanking. Anyway, should we get to our next email?
Yeah, that was a strange detour.
Yeah,
that's
weird. We go off on weird tangents sometimes on this show.
Well, I think we're both afraid to malign Obama's signature legislation.
Chelsea, that's what it was. Chelsea Manning. So Darcy,
like Chelsea Clinton. I like it. Yeah,
in fact, there was some people grousing online that perhaps he picked that name just to kind of screw with Chelsea Clinton. But actually, now that I remember, he's got Chelsea like going back quite a ways, like in like diaries and stuff like.
Wasn't that his alias as part of it? This is not relevant.
Right. So Darcy writes in. I know it's because of the no sleep in both of us.
Yeah.
Darcy writes in, as I've said, you might have heard that. Got a correction regarding Vala. Hi, I watch and listen to your shows for a while, but now I decided to contribute back a bit and correct you on the Vala portability issues. Vala compiles to C, and the Vala compiler then invokes GCC or whatever C compiler you have. So in short, Vala works wherever C works. As a forward suggestion, I'd like to recommend you have a look at Ecre, E-C-E-R-E. It's at ecere.com and post your comments about it. It's a project from a friend. Have fun. So some people can check out. So thanks, Darcy. That makes sense. Wow, my camera shots. Oh, that's right. I remember now. I was messing around for the Jupiter signal, and I screwed up the camera shot for Coda Radio. Sorry about that.
Nice job, Coda Radio. I mean, Jupiter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I don't, but I think I do. So we appreciate that. Now there was we got a lot of feedback too around the patent discussion that we had last week. Did you want to just kind of generalize and sum up some of that stuff?
Yeah. So Texas, still your fault.
Ouch! Wow, that's it, really? I mean, that is kind of
we got a lot of outrage about don't malign Texas, and also it's we had the few it's not Texas' fault. We also had the get rid of patents altogether. So I mean, software patents probably should go away, right? Like I don't think there's a lot to talk about there. They are a thing that are more or less intrinsically bad, in my opinion. If you recall, a few months ago, I had a little brush-in with lovely patent people.
I do recall.
Yes, and I'm it's okay. Chris, can we piss some people off?
Do it.
It's like Tor, right?
Oh man.
Yes,
okay.
You can use it for a good reason, but most people probably aren't, right? I mean, for every small innovator that's using a patent to defend himself from a big company, there's also 20 litigious bullshit patent companies. And we're not even going to go into what the bad things people do with Tor is, because...
I'm trying to think if I've ever used Tor. I mean, Okay, so here's an example, I think. I mean, I think maybe you're being a little rough, because I get a little weirded out sometimes when I'm researching stuff for Unfilter, and sometimes it crosses my mind to jump onto Tor and do it from there.
So I'm not saying that no one ever uses Tor or patents for a good thing, right? I'm saying that the likelihood of someone using it for a bad thing is high.
Okay.
So at least 50%. And it's just like, I could be wrong. I would love to be wrong.
All right, so where were you going with that?
I'm going with it that the damage you would do to good actors by eliminating patents is far outweighed by the good you would do by, getting rid of Lodsys and all those people. Right. So, I firmly believe there are a very, very small number of people who are, doing the right thing with patents. But again, very, very small. And probably not software patents, right? Probably mechanical patents, which is really what they're for and where they make sense.
Right.
Like, again, business process patents, also really stupid.
Yes, sir. I do completely agree with you. All right. Well, I'm itching to talk about our workflow. I think this is going to be an interesting conversation, especially with your switch to Ubuntu. And it's interesting too because I'm making some changes here at Jupiter HQ. So we're going to talk about that. But first, I want to thank our first sponsor this week. And of course, friends, you know who that is. That is Ting.com. I want to tell you about Ting.com. Go to coderradio.ting.com. Ting is my mobile service provider. Been so since about the beginning of the year. And man, am I happy. I tell you, I am absolutely thrilled because my cell coverage is great. For one, I have WiMAX and LTE in my area. But my usage varies so much. And I would always in the past end up having a device that I would pay between my wife and I about $120, $130 a month. And maybe 1 month I'd use half of our minutes and 1 month I'd use all of the minutes. Just kind of depend on my work, my client situation and things like that. And I think, something that we're all very aware of, but we just don't really know what the solution is these companies, the incumbent telco mobile companies, their business model depends on taking advantage of us as customers. It depends on selling us a bunch of minutes we may or may not need, forcing us into data plans that we don't necessarily want in order to use the devices we want to use, locking us into these draconian contracts that if you try to cancel, and then when you walk away, you end up getting like this big bag of hate left on your door a couple of months later when you get their final bill in the mail. Just about the time you forget about it, that's when they end up charging you that about $300 termination fee or whatever it is. Ting doesn't do any of this. No contracts, no early termination fees, and you only pay for the minutes, the messages, and the megabytes that you use. In fact, if you got a small business or a family, one of the great things you can do is you can get multiple lines. It's $6 per line, and then you only pay for what you use from a pooled amount of minutes, megabytes, and messages. Ting has an easy-to-use dashboard so you can see where everybody's at. You can set up alerts if you want to. Ting has fantastic customer support. When you call their customer support, a real person answers the phone. And they have active forums. And they have frequent hangouts. You can go to ting.com/hangouts, or I think it's either hangout or hangouts. They set up a new landing page, so that way if you have any questions when they're doing their calls, maybe you want to see if you can pump them for a little information, they got that over there. It's really cool. And Ting is a very transparent company. They often post information about the company on their blog, which I love a lot. And they also have some great devices which are contract-free, like the Moto X. Now, Mr. Dominic, what do you think of that Moto X?
I haven't received one yet, but it does look pretty.
Now, did you order the white or the black one?
I actually ordered the developer edition one, so I think it's white.
White, yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Ting just recently updated their website, so you can get even a better look at some of the phones that they have there, their new carousels there. Ting also just recently introduced an early termination relief program, where if you have to cancel your current contract to go use Ting, they'll pay you up to $75 per line. How awesome is that? All you got to do is you pick your device, you port your number, and then you submit your ETF claim from your previous mobile provider, and Ting will write you up to $75 for each line. For each line. So if you're going to bring a few people over, now's the time to do it. So go to coderradio.ting.com. You'll save $25 off your first device, or you can save $25 off a month's service. You can even click the savings calculator right on that page when you get there to just do the math yourself, and then you're really going to switch, especially when you consider that early termination relief. I mean, Ting is amazing, too, because they bundle in the hotspot, the tethering, the caller ID, three-way calling, voicemail, all of that stuff, their amazing dashboard. All of it's just included and you just pay for what you use. It is an unbelievable new approach to cell phones, and I want you to go check them out. So go to coderradio.ting.com, take $25 off your first month of service if you bring your own device, or $25 off a device. And then when you pick a device, contract free. It's yours. You own it, man. It's yours. It's yours. They got great used devices too. And even a concierge service, which will help find one for you. If they don't have somebody on that page and you kind of have an idea of what you want specifically, hit up that concierge service. And then when they go out, they'll suss one out for you, one that's Ting compatible, and they'll contact you when they have it. How cool is that? coderradio.ting.com. And thanks to Ting for sponsoring the Coda Radio program. Love Ting.
Ting brings me up, but Chris, I hear we may have recently been pulled down.
Oh, I forgot all about that. You're right.
Yeah.
So I just wanted a little public service announcement. If you generally watch the Coda Radio program on YouTube, last week 69 was pulled down. And can you guess 69 episodes up on YouTube, every single episode we've ever made, plus a teaser up on YouTube, and 69 is pulled down. Any guesses why?
Well, let's see. 69 is a sexual innuendo in itself. Was that why?
Nope. But we did, I could see that. We sweared a lot in that episode too. Maybe that was it.
What was the Python script that pulled it down called Python _Texan?
No, it was Python _negative_in_the_freedom.
It's negative in the freedom dimension.
Wait, they pulled it down for that?
No, they pulled it down because of our theme music, the Coda Radio intro.
Why?
The same one we've used in all 69 episodes. The one that I have a personal license from Ronald Jenkins that is signed, that is an official license that I have provided YouTube, and they pulled it down.
So I just want to get this straight. They think we don't have a license to the music, so they of course pulled down all 69 episodes.
Nope. In fact, they also pulled down BSD Now episode 3, I believe it was.
So who did you piss off at YouTube?
I think, what happens is, I'm wondering if the more it happens, the more your account gets flagged. So now, whenever I just turn on a video for revenue sharing, YouTube pulls it immediately, and then holds it, and then releases it again. Even if it's already been approved once, whereas before they would never do that. I don't know if that's just something they're targeting me, and I did notice a lot more of my shows are getting flagged now, revenue sharing or not. I honestly think it's one of those things where it's almost, when it becomes 1 or 2 a week, it's almost unmanageable for me because it's.
So let me ask you this though, right? So I'm sure you got an email from a lovely person.
It's an automated vague email that just says, and here's
okay, but at the end of the email, there must have been like a give us a ring or email us back.
No. What you have to do is go fill out a Google Docs embedded form on some YouTube support page. It's buried so deep they have to deep link you to it. And then you have to provide proof of the right to use every element in the show. So every time this happens, I have to prove that I have rights to our intro graphics, which I created, the music, which I've provided licensing proof before, the visual frame around our chat room, the chat room element itself, the outro music, the credits.
YouTube is Russian, right?
They even want proof of the Jupiter Broadcasting intro logo. They want proof that the Jupiter Broadcasting account owns that. And what is so unbelievably mind-numbing about this is it's not like I've only been doing this for 6 months. I have 1,280 videos on YouTube. You think maybe I know what the hell I'm doing by this point?
Chris, you're not taking a global perspective. YouTube is not an American company. They don't. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
They do have the. Wait a minute.
You know what?
They're accusing you of a crime. Aren't
we need
they?
a nice non-evil company that really supports the web to buy up YouTube. Somebody who wants independent content, somebody that just wants to bring all of the world's information together. We need a company like that to buy up YouTube to sort all this stuff out.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
Chris, don't you understand that customer service is expensive?
Yeah.
And a Python script is a lot cheaper.
And to be clear.
And Chris, don't you also know that you're not their customer? The big content providers are.
But our videos have ads on them, so YouTube makes money off of Jupiter Broadcasting, right? So we are revenue positive for Google, and they still pull us.
Not enough.
No, because we're not getting millions and millions or whatever it is.
Yeah.
See, the problem is the web is getting screwed, right? Because you have things getting locked up in app stores that then have draconian policies.
Hang on.
You got services like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter who now dictate what content is, and it is a far cry from what it was back in my day, Mr. Dominic. That's all I'm saying.
Well, Grandpa, I definitely.
Curmudgeon.
So let's devil's advocate this, because I think you're not angry enough yet.
Okay.
I'm YouTube. I'm Larry Page.
Oh, wait. We've already got It's Not Google's Fault in the chat room. We've already got It's Not Google's Fault.
That was a lot slower than I thought it would be.
I have supplied Google with documents.
Wait. The Google Defense Force is standing in their ranks there, in line, ready to fire their muskets.
The first time it gets flagged, maybe that's Google just bending over and making it easy for the recording and movie industry.
Let me ask you this.
But after I provide them documentation for everything I own, that's ridiculous at that point.
Now, if this is MSN Video, the chat room would have very different feelings.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Get out there. Now, but playing
or if
devil's
this was
advocate,
Apple, if this was Apple and these were iTunes, this would be Apple's fault, right? If we were getting pulled out of iTunes, this would be Apple's fault. It wouldn't be the recording industry.
Remember the time we were featured on the front page and then I said something not nice about them and we weren't?
Well, that was Apple's fault.
Of course.
But this is Google's fault. I mean,
no, it's Google. It's never their fault, Chris. Ever.
It never is. It's Google. Oh, Google didn't mean to screw up Android. It's the carrier's fault. Google didn't mean to destroy the YouTube. It's the MPAA's fault. How about Google stops bending over for all these people? How about that? How about that? How about Google takes my documentation, and how about Google says, oh, well, we have this on file? Right? How about that? How about that for an idea?
That would be very hard to scan with a Python script.
You're right. I mean, this is not, this is not really development related, and it's not our workflow topic, but I just want to make a PSA.
So it actually is, though, if you think about it. And I can make the argument. One of the issues is customer service if you're a developer, particularly an app developer, right? And in my mind, Google is the exact opposite of what you want to be. One nice thing about Apple, for as jerky as they are, you can actually call someone on the phone, right? And you're going to be calling relative native to where you are, right? So U.S., you call U.S. Overseas, they have overseas office. And I have to say, I mean, I don't know, Chris, how you like to do things, but especially in business, I prefer to be able to call someone on the phone.
Well, especially at this point, now that it's happening to me 1 or 2 times a week, and I'm totally legit. Like I'm very careful about all that kind of stuff. We don't use any unlicensed music or visuals. And so I would very, very, very much like to call somebody up and say, hey, can you please take a look at this? This is getting ridiculous. And the problem is because I have to provide so much documentation, I'm not getting to it anymore because if it's one video every couple of weeks, man, that's doable. But when it's 1 or 2 videos, and so sometimes they don't get pulled. So sometimes people don't realize it's happening. Sometimes they just flag them, but sometimes for whatever reason they decide to pull them depending on the depth of the violation, I guess.
So I just want to comment on Annie Z's thing in the chat. Content ID was somewhat voluntary, right? But it was part of a negotiation to settle out of court. Google could have at any time said, no, we're going to the mattresses. We're going to court. You must sue us for every...
Google's too broke, man. They couldn't afford to do that.
Yeah,
They're
they
poor.
couldn't afford
They're poor, yeah. No, and remember, they care a lot about the web and open standards, except for when it requires them to spend even more money. Then they just settle. Just like they did with Android.
Well, then.
Yeah. I'm pretty mad now that I think about it. And you're right. All of my anger would really, at least if I could call somebody and just explain to them what keeps happening to me, I would feel a lot better. If I could just get somebody over there to just look at my problem. Instead, I have to keep interfacing with this horrible form that feels like it was developed in the early 90s, back when we used frames. And I mean, it's just horrible. It's horrible.
And the funny part is Google has recognized the need for human, again, domestic, relative to where you are, customer service. If you buy a Nexus device, you can call them on the phone.
Or if you have Google Glass and you bitch on G+ that Google Glass isn't working, they'll call you.
I have to say, the only company that ever gets in contact with me when I bitch about them on here or on Google Plus is Canonical. And it's because Alan Popey gets sad. But listen, Chris, Larry Page is busy stealing his friend's girlfriends. Oh, God. Sorry.
So Tack brought up a thing. This is going to come up. The reason why we're on YouTube is the same reason we're in iTunes, right? It's where the eyeballs are. And the other thing is YouTube makes it very shareable. So if somebody likes an episode of Coder Radio, they can send it to a friend super easy. They can send it even to the right time in bed, which is nice. It makes it available on mobile apps. It makes it available on set-top boxes. There's a lot of benefits to YouTube, and I want to keep using YouTube, and I make revenue off of YouTube. Not very much. I'd love to make more, because especially considering the amount of content I have up there, I just want to talk to somebody.
But you know what it is to me about Google, to be honest? It's not even their business practices, though I don't necessarily agree with them. It's that they go on the soapbox all the freaking time and say how they're moral and they're not evil and they're not like other companies.
Or Larry Page comes out and talks about how everybody just needs to be a lot nicer to each other.
To change the world, free ideas, no restrictions. His stupid little Burning Man Island idea.
Yeah.
And then they do things like this, or they destroy small markets of software because, hey, we can get more revenue on ads. You know what? I could even tolerate their PR doing that. It's the constant stream of people screaming from the rooftops how wonderful Google is, and Google's going to change their lives, and
it's the total
Google's
lack of critical thinking around them.
Right,
Like it just switches off. It just Google has pushed all of the right buttons to just turn all that off in people's minds. And it's not us. I mean, like, and then the way that works in their mind is, well, we're just not seeing it correctly. We're not thinking about it correctly, and it's
we're thinking outmoded, right? We're living in the past. That's the thing. If you don't agree with what Google's doing, you're not hip. You're not with the modern way of doing things, and it's very frustrating. I've never heard of a company other than Apple, and even the Apple fanboys aren't that bad because they're not super aggressive with it. Get so freaking wacky about a company as though it was a religion.
Yeah, well, I've read a book, and basically what it states is that human beings take part of who they identify themselves and they attach it to brands. Well, that brand represents what I believe and how I think and what my values are, so therefore I support them. And then when somebody else comes along and then sort of tarnishes that brand, people internalize that because, well, I base my like of that brand on their values, and so if you're attacking their values, you're attacking my values. So then people get all crazy about it.
Oh, well, we should, yeah. I mean, that makes sense. We should move on, though, because I can't, we're going to get tons of emails.
You're right. Okay, yeah. So we need to talk about workflow, but we should probably do one more sponsor break. That way we'll just go right to the end of the show. What do you say?
That's right. Google Checkout, our newest sponsor.
Integrate Google Checkout into your application or your project today.
No, it's yahoo.com.
Check out our new logo. It's the only thing we've done since I kid.
Join Marissa Meyer in federal prison on trial for treason.
No, our sponsor is better than all of those things. It is GoDaddy.com with their $1.99 deal. Coder $1.99 when you check out. It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable. Now, here's a reason why you, as maybe a developer or somebody that works in a small business or a group or in an enterprise, you might want to check out GoDaddy because of the great deals. You might want to check out GoDaddy because of the email, because of maybe their CDN system that might make your exchange stay up. Just a tip there. No, they also have fantastic group collaboration. What?
Ooh.
Oh, the burn? I know. Ooh. Sometimes I get a little saucy. It's the coffee with the no sleep, I'm telling you. I kind of feel like I'm kicking it up a notch, like Jean-Claude Van Damme. Pow! Man, Coder $1.99 when you check out.
You're kicking it up like Danica Patrick.
Ouch. Man, now look at you just flinging. You're flinging now. Actually, right. If you think about it, I'm kind of in the perfect position. I got Danica on one side and Jean-Claude on the other, and I'm the meat. I don't know exactly what that means now that I think about it, but let's just back away.
You're going to be re-recording this ad.
Let's focus on $1.99. Let's focus on that. Coder $1.99 when you check out over at GoDaddy.com. And you can also click the banner in our show notes that pre-charges your shopping session with the $1.99 additional years. Just a $9.99 or additional .coms a $9.99 when you use Coder $1.99. GoDaddy's great collaboration tools make it a slam dunk if you're in a group, and GoDaddy's fantastic prices make it a slam dunk when you're an individual. Plus, you can grab their mobile app and buy on the go. Just don't forget to use our code, Coder $1.99. So thanks to GoDaddy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Thanks to you guys for supporting our sponsors by using those codes, letting them know that you appreciate them supporting the Coder Radio program. That keeps us on there. That keeps us going. That right there, my friends, is the circle of podcasting life, and it is a beautiful thing, and GoDaddy has been an essential part of that for a long time. So we really appreciate GoDaddy sponsoring the Coder Radio program. We appreciate you guys supporting them. Use the code Coder199 when you check out, and thanks to GoDaddy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. See, I kind of pulled it up there at the end. You see?
No, that was good. So I just have one more thing.
Okay.
I've been studying for the last year or two a lot about the Microsoft antitrust trial.
Oh, really? Just for good old time reading or what?
I want to get it, right? And I don't want to get it in a cursory sense of this is why they were evil bitches. I want to get it in the sense of
what were they actually doing?
What were they actually doing, and how did this happen, right? Did the Justice Department on its own be like, hey, that's kind of jerk-offy. Let's
No, I don't think so. Wasn't it OEMs that were like, come on?
It was OEMs and actually Mozilla. So it was special interests that pushed the Justice Department, which is the way it works, right? The Justice Department doesn't.
Yeah, but Mozilla back then was so tiny.
Tiny, but had very rich investors.
Oh.
Yes. But that's not even my point. Some of the things Microsoft was accused of that they probably did, right? Price fixing, lowering the price on software to, quote, snuff competitors out, which is, by the way, antitrust, kids. So when they lowered the price to, let's say, $200 a unit, that was price fixing. When Google made everything free, that wasn't.
Oh man.
Huh.
Oh man. Man,
See where I'm
poor
going with
Google.
this?
Poor Google.
Now I know Eric Holder's busy trying to legalize marijuana, and well, actually, he's not busy. He's off today still. So
Yeah. No, they're
perhaps,
having. This
yeah,
shutdown. It's probably pretty nice because they're gonna get paid.
of course they're gonna get back pay.
Yeah.
So Eric, Mr. Holder, my buddy, please don't indict me. When you're chilling poolside with Barack, I just feel like that's what you're doing. We haven't seen a good antitrust trial in a while, and frankly, software pricing, price fixing. So it was bad when it was 200 a unit, but when it went down to 0, it was okay.
Are you suggesting that they should go after Google for a?
So there's a legal term that I'm learning from. Actually, I'm reading Microsoft Rebooted, and I'll bring it in the next show. Forgot the other title, but one for during the trial called dumping. Chris, do you know what dumping is?
Well, you've mentioned it recently. It's where you
Yeah.
sort of like dump your product onto the market to drive the price way down.
Right. So exactly. So it's dumping if you take a $100 piece of software and charge 50 for it. Now, if you take a several $1,000 piece of software and charge 0 for it, but claim, oh, we're monetizing via ads, that's not price dumping? I don't know.
But they didn't dump hardware, right? And that's where I think the difference is. They dumped software.
So it is. Well, Microsoft was accused of that. Remember, Microsoft didn't get convicted.
Good point.
They settled.
Right.
They were never convicted. So it was never tried. It was tried, but they didn't get the jury. They settled. Why? First of all, it doesn't matter if it's software or hardware. If Chris, if you want a coffee shop, and we're getting way off the rails, but I'm pissed. So if I own Mike's coffee shop and you own some crappy Linux using coffee shop, and you're selling your overpaid crappy British orange and purple coffee for $2 a cup, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, you're selling Ubuntu coffee. And I'm like, I have a lot of money. Chris is poor. But Chris, I'm going to sell coffee for a penny a cup. And Chris is eventually going to go out of business, and then I'll raise the price.
Right.
That's a crime.
But they're not going to raise the price.
Exactly. But the crime isn't raising the price later. The crime is selling below cost with the intent of snuffing out competitors.
So your argument is if this was enough to get Microsoft in trouble. Well, they also were bundling in the Internet Explorer browser and all that.
Which was the weakest part of the case, right?
That's the part that got the most attention, actually, though.
Right, but if you think about it objectively, they could just unbundle it, right? They didn't really affect competitors that much. I mean, yes, Mozilla was pissed, but it's easy to quantify the lost business with this kind of free, not like Richard Stallman free, but
price free,
no cost, free as in beer or software.
Yeah.
I don't understand I'm not arguing that Microsoft should not have been brought to court and questioned. I'm arguing that the stack of evidence against Google seems a hell of a lot higher. And maybe they're not guilty. I'm not saying they're guilty. I'm saying, where's the inquiry?
Maybe right? One will come.
Maybe they should negotiate. And yes, they did have some chat with they had a brief inquiry, but not about the price of their software.
So the other thing, though, the other thing that Microsoft trial did is it ended up getting Microsoft much more involved at the lobbying level, right? And that was sort of the long-term effect on the companies. They're now involved in the political system. This is something that Eric Schmidt was hip to when he came to Google. So he started that process a long time ago. Now that Eric Schmidt's no longer running the show, one of his stated primary goals is interfacing with the federal government. I would imagine that means orchestrating lobbyists, and Google does contribute quite a bit to lobbying. So maybe that's why they don't get, maybe because they're proactively engaged in the political system, they sort of fend those types of things off. And I wouldn't blame them for that. I sure as hell would if I could.
I'm not saying that they shouldn't do what they need to do to protect themselves. I'm not even saying they're guilty, right? I'm saying that there are certainly enough to start a real formal inquiry on the effects Google and Google services have had on the prices of software and what the potential effects they could have had on small software developers, small business. That's all I'm saying is an inquiry, not a conviction.
One more tangent. What do you think about the fact that Google is now introducing ads into the official Android Gmail app? Sort of maybe like one of their probably most used apps, and They're going to have ads in it. Do you think
I don't care about that sort of thing.
You don't think that green lights like just opens the floodgates? All right, now everyone just put ads in.
Well, I think that's. I mean, again, I don't want to hit this hard because I know we talk about some. Google's thing is for you not to charge for your software, right? They want you to put ads.
All right. So let's talk about workflows because I feel like we're torturing people here. We're torturing people.
Yeah, we're the Google fans are getting very upset.
I know, and the thing is, it's very hard because we talk past each other. Like you can see in the chat room right now, like you're not getting through to them. They're not getting through to us because we're not even necessarily talking about the same kind of things. Really, it almost seems like. So it's.
Well, I will say that if you're not on the business side, if you're not running a small independent business, these kind of things probably don't affect you, right? You're just thinking, I'm getting the value of the software, and they're getting data. And the problem is, a small business can't build the infrastructure to do that.
And if you're just a user, you don't build anything, you don't own a small business, you might think, well, the best value for me is that ASOP is free, or the best value for me is that they're doing this. This is good for me because I don't have a lot of spare change. And I totally understand that, but it is a larger global market dynamics that get shifted when these things happen, and then it has trickle down effects. So, is any of this involved with your switch to Ubuntu, or has that been completely unrelated?
No, you just happened to spark me with the Google stuff now. I was in a good mood this morning. Thanks, Chris.
Well, so you mentioned you were switching a friend, and they were like blown away by it. Now,
so, a buddy of mine is actually coming to work with me starting in January, and the decision. I guess I could say I decided, but the decision really kind of got made naturally that Fingertip is going to be a Unix-only shop.
Whoa.
For the most part.
Well, except for Azure.
Which is going away for reasons.
I believe I called it. I believe I said in 2 or 3 episodes, I think I totally called that.
Oh, God. Yeah. Well, so one other thing is they... all right. Well, okay. Let's just take a brief detour on why Azure is going away. They've stopped handing out free money to my clients, and some of them are getting the real bills.
Oh. Got a little expensive, huh?
When I sounded crazy saying, this might cost you a lot of money, yeah.
That was when they were getting a good deal. All right, that's fair. Okay. So now you're thinking Unix only, because what? You're thinking not really any point in developing apps for the Windows desktop? Still a lot of people over there. A lot of users on that Windows platform and the Windows mobile. Could be ripe for the picking.
What? You wait. Okay.
I'm just playing devil's advocate trying to see what you say.
When you say Windows desktop, do you mean like...
Metro, I guess?
Metro? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're supposed to write apps for anymore.
So I don't think there are a lot of people there. In fact, they're merging the APIs, supposedly.
Well, all right. So if you're going to be a Unix shop, that probably meant you. Now, tell me about this part about switching the user over to Ubuntu and his reaction to it, because that's the part I'm interested in.
So that was interesting because, I had bought a workstation for him that was, I'm a big fan of Dell and Apple hardware, right? So I had bought a nice Dell desktop for him. Oh, shut up, Chris.
Well, no, it's just nice and Dell desktop. That's all. I'm just like,
wow, you're unbelievable today.
I know.
Like my little microphone arm is falling down right now.
Oh man, I didn't mean to make your arm limp. I'm sorry about that.
Well, it's very funny.
Do you need a minute to F with it? I can mute you for a few seconds if you want to.
I think I got it.
Good work over there.
It's nope. Okay, we're good.
Okay, all right.
So there's a few little things, right? And some of the reasons are flimsy for putting him on Linux. One was when he didn't like Windows 8 much. He's actually in the chat too. He's talking about his Ubuntu. And more importantly, Windows line endings were becoming a pain in the ass. Because it makes it look like if you don't know in Git, it'll make it look like you rewrote the entire file, which is not good. So there was that. There was the fact that we also, a few people are running Linux around in the office, and he was just getting curious. Like, what's that? That looks pretty.
Linux curious. I know how that goes.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, kind of just loaded him with some Ubuntu, and I get a...
Interesting you went Ubuntu. That's interesting.
Well, another guy in my office is a Ubuntu guy.
Of course.
Yeah,
It's always,
standardized.
it always goes, well, yeah, no, there's always like, oh, don't use Unity. This is one of the things that drives me crazy is before people
So
get a chance to use it, there's always somebody in the peanut gallery that says, don't use Unity, that sucks, you don't want to use that. I'm like, oh, just give it a shot.
So I'm running Unity at home, but what was really entertaining was that when he, so he was running Ubuntu for a day or two, and I think it was the very evening of, he wanted to know about installing a VM on his home system to run Ubuntu or Ubuntu.
That's positive.
Yeah.
So why did that involve you switching? So everybody's kind of doing the same.
So it didn't. He switched earlier in the week. I switched last night because at the office I'm running a Mac Mini. I'm running Mac still. And it was weird. As I saw, the rest of them running Linux there, I'm getting like, oh, gee, that's nice. I'm getting a little jealous, not gonna lie. Getting a little jelly. I mean, XFCE is not really my drug of choice, but and last night I was like, all right, let's partition this drive, which I did incorrectly.
You really did delete your Windows partition?
I screwed it up. Yeah. I may have clicked enter a little too fast.
Well, that's okay. That happens.
But what was funny is, so I expected problems, right? Like I expected things not to work kind of like they used to. And within 20 minutes, I had most PPAs I needed added in. I was apt getting my way to glory.
Nice.
I had installed the proprietary driver for my ridiculous NVIDIA card in this machine.
Good.
And I'm broadcasting from that machine right now on Ubuntu.
Good.
I had the Rode Podcaster was actually automatically detected, which I was shocked.
It works good, doesn't it?
Yeah. The sound quality is actually better than it was these last 2 weeks on Windows on the same hardware.
Yeah.
And how bad is that, at least from my end?
Yeah.
I sudo apt-get, I PPA'd Sublime. Basically, it was easy. The only thing is I don't really have an email client I like.
Yeah, well, it's either it's like Thunderbird Evolution or, Gary.
I like Gary. Gary's missing some stuff and some things in the UI I'm not a fan of.
They just did a new update, though.
I know, I got it. It's serviceable, but I don't know. I may end up either contributing or doing something else.
Yeah.
It's pretty far from what I want, but I know I'm picky.
My advice, if you can, is just make Thunderbird work for you. It's so far over the years has been the one I always end up going back to.
We'll see what I end up doing. But I have my hip chat on here. By the way, Skype on Linux is a lot better than Skype on Windows.
It's just more minimal, It's just it's not all this extra crap. You don't have the ads. It's much nicer. At least I don't think there's ads.
The only thing that was a pain in the ass was Dropbox. And even then, it took me 10 minutes just to Google it, DuckDuckGo it, and change my config files because I guess it runs out of permission eventually.
Oh, I just installed it So what I did last night is I downloaded the deb from the Dropbox website, and then when you run it,
I PPA'd it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have to because the Dropbox client actually goes out and downloads its own binary updates. So it'll go out.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I think it's because I PPA'd it. I had to manually change the setting to allow it to monitor the system. I guess it runs out of attempts or something.
Huh.
Yeah.
So last night I'm running on Ubuntu this week for the review of 13.10 on Sunday's Linux Action Show. So I'm running Ubuntu all week, and so I loaded
crazy bleeding edge guy.
I know, and I loaded up Dropbox, and I was trying to move some stuff around. I was trying to add the Dropbox folder to the side link bar of places in the file manager, and instead of putting a bookmark in my sidebar, it moved it into the folder I was trying to put it next to, my music folder, and so then it moved my Dropbox folder, which because Dropbox was syncing, it then it immediately created a new replacement folder that was empty, and then it wiped out the contents on all of my computers.
Whoops.
So then, of course, I moved the folder back, but now all of the timestamps on the files are good, but all of the folders now have last night's timestamp.
Not good.
I hate it when that kind of crap happens. So do you find that there's things innate about Linux that make your workflow more efficient, or what is it?
So yeah, this is getting more to the dev side, so people can stop writing their hate mail now. It's not Linux specific, right? I don't want to hit that hard. It's Unix specific, and this might just be a preference thing. I've gotten really used to the command line, and Bash in particular. And digging through GUI menus for stuff is more challenging to me than I would like to admit, especially in Visual Studio, things like that. So during my Windows period, when I was really trying to get into it, I was using all of the Microsoft way of doing things, right? I was even using a GUI Git client for a while. And it was kind of terrible.
The one that ties in with Explorer?
No, I was using SourceTree. And it's not that the stuff didn't work. It was just, I feel like when you learn a Unix command, and then you learn another one. Here's a great example. I like Sublime Text, right?
Yeah.
So I will sometimes do, ls-tac-a pipe sublime or pipe SBL, as comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And just because I want it in a document so I can just quickly search through it easily.
Yeah.
I do stuff like that with pipe all the time. Sometimes I'll even pipe multiple scripts to each other.
Now, can you do that on the Mac? Could you pipe it to like a Sublime GUI application?
Yeah, you can pipe on the Mac. It's a little harder to set it up, but Mac has the whole Unix underpinnings.
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering, because it seems like that particular aspect of it's sort of the same.
Right, that's why it's smooth for me.
Okay.
The one thing the Mac is missing is actually apt-get.
Yeah, right.
That's Debian and Ubuntu specific.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Now I'm using Homebrew on Mac to make it suck less, but it's still not.
It's not the same. It's not as well integrated for one. And this is why, not to be that guy, but that's why I switched to Arch. Because if you like that, now imagine never having to get a PPA ever, right? Then that's Arch.
So it's weird. I trust the Ubuntu repo more than I think I would trust Arch.
Yeah, I could see that, especially if you want like stuff that's been sort of in a quote unquote snapshotted. So we snapshotted these versions. We'll do security updates, but it's going to be this major version for the length of this release. Then that's, and that sort of provides a cert, which I think is probably better in a production environment. Right.
Yeah, so the only thing that was surprisingly annoying was apparently Oracle and Linux had a pissing match.
Probably. They always
do. Getting Oracle Java actually required me to go out and get stuff and do some. Again, it took 10 minutes, right? It wasn't bad, but
yeah.
I was surprised at sudo apt-get Java. There was no way to do Oracle Java.
What I find, specifically is I have found that with the tools that I use, like I use command line programs or GUI programs, both available on either Chrome, Handbrake.
Right.
These are things I'm using every single day. They're available on all of the platforms. It does for me come down to the popping that terminal up and having my mount is just one NFS command away. My, whatever I need is just one command away. And I have, which you might like too, Gwake, where I just tap my tilde key and a terminal slides down on my screen. I do what I need to do. I tap the tilde key, the terminal slides up again, and it's persistent. So it's really easy. Like I can be in any program and I can jump into a terminal with one tap of one key, do what I need to do in the terminal, tap that tilde key again, and I'm right back into my main application. So it's super smooth. And there's some extensions to do that under KDE and GNOME too. It's not just, you don't have to use just Gwake, but I thought maybe you might try out Elementary OS, to be honest with you, because it's got.
So I looked at it, and I came very close to it because it's very Mac-like.
Yeah, it's like the workflow transition is like almost one to one. Yeah.
Well, the way I use Mac, Ubuntu is pretty close, right? What is it? It's meta to get up the search your
dash,
stuff.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what I was doing with Spotlight. The other thing is, since Ubuntu is the most common, I have other reasons to be running it.
Yeah.
Hint, hint, hint.
Yeah. Oh. See, this is why I'm mad they're screwing the pooch.
So one thing I guess I can spoil a little bit. Still not interested in the Ubuntu Software Center.
Yeah, no, it's no better than 13.10. No better.
So I opened it up to kind of see what was going on there, and I'm like, nope.
What's interesting too is now it's no longer just bad in UI and performance and layout and functionality. It is also now bad in software selection. Like they are missing some of the best things on Linux desktop today. They do not have in the Software Center, like Conky. Tons and tons and tons of Linux users love to have Conky because it gives them embedded real-time, stats and calendars and stuff like that in their wallpaper. It's beautiful, and it is plentiful for Ubuntu, and they don't have it. There's lots of little things like that they just don't have in the Software Center. The Handbrake. They don't have Handbrake in the Software Center. Who the hell doesn't have Handbrake in their Software Center? Handbrake's the greatest encoding tool on any platform, and they don't have it in their Software Center. What kind of ridiculousnip is that?
I actually took the Software Center off the launch bar. I don't care.
Yeah.
Right?
Just download Debs. Go get GitDebI. GitDebI is a fantastic command line and graphical installer. Will automatically resolve all dependencies for the Deb.
Right.
And you just right click on the Deb, open with GitDebI, and you're good to go.
Well, to be honest, like if I'm buying, another developer's, Ubuntu app, why can't I just go to his website and buy the deb? Why do I, you know what I mean? Like nothing stops me.
So here's the great thing about Linux is it's the great equalizer in the sense that, so when you were using the Mac workflow, you could buy a MacBook Air, which is a great piece of hardware, and you could use Mac OS. You could even put Linux on there if you wanted to. That's what Linus does, right? Linus Torvalds does that.
Right, he's running Linux on a Mac, yeah.
MacBook Air. So but the thing is you don't have to either. Like with the great thing is Linux, you can get that same UI, that same workflow, the command line, the decent GUI interface on any piece of hardware you want. And I think to me, as a business owner, like sometimes I can afford the $3,000 workhorse. Sometimes
exactly.
I need a $900 workhorse. Especially like if I started thinking about like if I was gonna hire somebody to do some editing for me, I'd much prefer to be able to go out and buy like a System 76 rig than have to go buy a Mac Pro, right?
So this is kind of a maiden voyage for me. I mean, well, not really. I mean, it's hard to act like a new Linux user because I used it for a long time. I mean, a lot of the stuff were to be like, oh, you can create aliases. Yes, I do. Like a lot, and also even coming from Mac, a lot of it's the same. But ultimately, I may just switch over to System 76 for most of my rigs and just have one Mac build machine.
That's what I'd like to get to.
And that would lower. I did some rough napkin math last night. That would lower my hardware budget a year by several $1,000s.
Yeah.
And I would get more raw power on the computers.
Yeah. And you're also not tied to a single vendor. You could choose different hardware if you want to, and you could choose different software if you wanted to.
Exactly.
So bringing this back to my workflow. So for me, like, obviously because of the shows I do, like I'm always using Linux, but I have found one of the nice things when you have sort of like, I have a FreeNAS file server. So one of the things that's really super improved my workflow in my day-to-day job is having central storage and then having all of these front-end Linux boxes, just do NFS mounts back to that. So I have essentially a network-wide file system that's in the same mount point on all of my same computers. So I can write scripts against that. And so everything uses the same path, right? Everything could point to the same files because it's all in the same spot on every computer. And that makes it that is so nice. I can just pick up and I can start working on any computer and all of the files are available. And where I can't do that, I supplement it with BitTorrent Sync. And I don't know if you've looked into BitTorrent Sync at all, but it's essentially what Dropbox gives you without going to a cloud server. So it's just peer-to-peer, and you can just keep it on your LAN if you want to. So I don't even sync out over the internet, right? I just sync, but I have BitTorrent Sync running on an Ubuntu server that stores it on my FreeNAS NFS mount, and then I have BitTorrent Sync running on every computer in my network, and they all just sync amongst each other. And then I don't need Dropbox. I do still use Dropbox for like my notes and some other things, but all of the production content now for the shows, which can be huge files, right? I mean, like just the intro video graphics for this show is 125 megabytes, not gigabytes, megabytes, and I don't need that sitting in a Dropbox folder taking up an indefinite amount of space that I have to pay rent on for something that I could just have syncing across my home network. So I've been using centralized storage with a centralized syncing, and it has kind of made me a little more OS agnostic, and it's also kind of made it more workstation agnostic because I can kind of get the same stuff done now on every computer, which is really great for maybe one day this machine takes a dump, and so I need to switch over to another computer. I'm not out, right? Where that used to be in the past, right, where if one machine died, my entire workflow is completely interrupted, and I can't get anything done until that machine's fixed. And I had to fix that problem.
So there's a more, again, bringing it back to a little more developer-y side of it is that, can I be flamey? Can I do it?
Do it.
I feel like Unix is better. Like, at least in concept, right? Where it's little tools. It's kind of like the app model. Small tools built to do one thing extremely well.
Purpose built, yeah.
Right. Not this giant monolithic GUI application that's going to, make you some tea, but also do your taxes.
Right. Yeah. But as long as these purpose-built tools can be chained together very well, you can.
Right.
It's very easy to create something more sophisticated from them. It also means individual parts of your system can progress and improve a little more modularly, I guess. But yet they still maintain compatibility because we're just so many years into this now. Like I've never had something quit working on the lower end of things, but you're right. I love that. I love being able to chain all that stuff together. Nothing really like that on the Windows side. Unless you install Cygwin.
Well, and that was really what pushed me over the edge. I actually ended up installing Cygwin, and I was like being a PowerShell ninja, and I got to the point where I'm just trying to replicate Unix, like especially with Cygwin, right? You are emulating Unix. I was like, why am I doing this? When I can easily just VM Win8 on a Mac for Azure, which I do anyway. So I'm now a Linux hippie.
I like it. I mean, this is good, man. This is good. We'll see how long it lasts. But I think it's, are you going to try loading on the, so you're going to keep the Mini OS 10 for
Mini
Xcode
is OS
stuff?
10.
Because you got to still do Xcode stuff.
Yeah. But there's also been another shift. And let's, I mean, do we have time for a big show today?
Yeah, we can do a big show. We can do a big show.
So I ended up in a conversation with a client recently where, they're another dev shop and they're kind of trying to figure out what they're doing in terms of their software stack. Like they're using some legacy stuff. And I was, we were talking and this guy's like, yeah, what about GitHub, man? He's like, I know you wrote an app for GitHub. He's like, he's basically pitching GitHub to me for them, which is very strange. And then I realized, why am I not using GitHub for everything? So I calculated, because I'm using Bitbucket because it's free. I calculated what I was paying for Bitbucket and then for a separate issue tracker because I don't like the one that comes in Bitbucket and then a few other services. I was paying more than I would pay for a GitHub corporate account.
I thought Bitbucket also had a few deployment options that you preferred.
GitHub has more.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I would assume, yeah.
So for instance, Azure will actually go into GitHub and deploy from there, as will Heroku. I believe Heroku will. Heroku! Again, I haven't done much Heroku recently.
What's the process like of moving from Bitbucket to GitHub?
So that's the thing. You don't need to move, right? I mean, Bitbucket's free.
Right.
So just future projects are going in GitHub.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And I'm already in this weird space where I have some closed source stuff on, like I have a paid GitHub account already. And most of my open source is also on GitHub. So it's kind of like I'm living in this split world for no apparent reason.
Yeah, I kind of know. I feel you there. I feel like I live in a split world some days.
And also the issue tracker on GitHub is amazing.
Yeah.
But the point of this whole rant about Git is that, Chris, the single most important tool in my toolchain is probably Git.
Yeah.
It's not just source control, right? It's deployment now.
Right.
It's
bug tracking.
It's bug tracking. Sometimes it's how I install things. If you're doing gems, you can actually do it like that. It's almost, it's kind of incredible. And it just works better on Unix. Oh.
So this is interesting, right? I mean, this is legitimate. This is going to be a fundamental shift as a lot of more quote-unquote cloud services come along, web-based applications come along, things like this. They do make it more possible to just sort of move to a different platform that does things a little bit better. And when if you buy into the fact that more and more stuff, I'm not saying everything, but more and more stuff is going to go this way, you really see where Microsoft and the traditional desktop could be in trouble. Because you've just been enabled here to say, I don't need to even bother with Windows.
Well, I feel like there's still a software gap on Linux, even Ubuntu, right? Right now, I'm using a few pieces of software that I find as acceptable solutions until I find something better, right? So
yeah, it's rough.
There's definitely there's some more polished applications. I think there's definitely a need and hopefully a desire for that on these systems.
I feel like the big projects right now are really beginning to work on their polish, like GNOME and supposedly Canonical.
So the thing that frightens me is all this stuff with Mir, and that's kind of still a little bit of a hesitation going on, like the little voice in the back of my head. All this infighting about different stacks and Mir, and I know recently on Last you guys talked about how Intel forced one of its open source developers to pull down a patch.
Or reject, something like
reject a patch, back for no reason.
They didn't want to support Canonical's efforts with Mir. Yeah,
right. That worries me. That level of fragmentation isn't good.
Yeah, it worries me too. That's why but then again, you're kind of thinking of it in a little more of traditional software terms, because you can have one element of the Linux community completely just implode, and the system itself continues on because it is in so many other forms and available in so many other ways. So it is a setback, but the overall progress continues to march on. You see what I'm saying? Like, as an Arch user, I'm going to be whatever happens with Canonical, I'm going to be totally unaffected by it, right? Or as a Fedora user, somebody would be completely, et cetera, et cetera. So you still have sort of a golden parachute there if they completely blow it. But I think the jury's out. We'll see where it goes.
I think it's going to be good, and I just want to address something in the chat about the status.github.com from Natch. As someone who distributes and sells a relatively popular GitHub application for Mac, I get plenty of emails every time GitHub goes down.
Yeah,
a lot of hate mail when that happens.
They assume it's you.
Well, I mean, who wouldn't, right?
I would. I am right now.
See how you are. To be fair, everything goes down, right? And the point of Git is that you shouldn't be relying on that central server, right? It's distributed source control. It's not SVN. If you're using SVN, please consider Git. So they've had, in the last month, according to my email inbox, they've had a number of outages. Thing is, since I'm not, religiously pushing every commit, every time I make a commit when I'm working in GitHub, I don't notice, right? Generally, I'll push a feature or a series of commits that makes sense because that's kind of the way you would do it.
So where are you off to now? Like now that you've got the Ubuntu rig set up, are you actually developing an application for Ubuntu? Are you developing something that maybe you can tell us about? A little hint?
A little something. Well, I would be willing to say that I am certainly eager to fill some of the gaps in my toolchain on Ubuntu.
That would be great. I mean, I'm going to be straight up. I'm going to be straight up honest. The apps on the Mac tend to be of a higher quality. And if we brought something, and it's totally possible on the Linux side, we just need somebody to sit down and commit to something and just keep working on it and making it better and better and better. Like, it is unbelievable to me that in 2013, I cannot take a picture from my file manager and drag it into my Pigeon window and have it show up in my wife's chat program. It is unbelievable. I cannot fathom it. And the Mac has been doing it since they launched iChat like back in 2004. It is, and I know it sounds stupid, but it is just an example of how a lot of desktop apps on Linux get to a point and then they just stagnate. And they don't add features. They don't get any better. They maybe change the UI. They maybe switch over to GTK3 or whatever the hell it is. But the basic fundamental things that just make a system nice to use sometimes never get added. However, I feel like maybe that's going to change. I feel like we're starting to see changes there.
So I'm not suggesting I'm doing some kind of photo management or photo tracking app. But that's sort of the thing I'm looking at, right? Like, I mean, I'm not, I obviously don't have kids, so the photo thing doesn't.
Gets me all fired up.
Right. But I feel like there is a opportunity for software to be developed for these systems that would be commercially viable, that would fill gaps and be useful, right? And if I'm wrong, I'm going to cry. So the other side of this is I'm in this place where, right now I'm using it, but still doing what I do for other stuff. I'm still not sure about the whole distribution thing. Because, how do you handle .deb, .rpm? Do you just make different packages? I mean, that's really not that hard.
Yeah.
But then again, I mean, that's a pain in the ass, right? I mean,
there's you check out the OpenSUSE build service. There's a service up there that you just kind of throw it up there and they'll build out the different packages for a bunch of different distros.
I saw that, yeah. And I mean, I'm also looking at toolchains. I mean, obviously, I've talked about one toolchain in particular quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good old Qt or Qt Py, as I call it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, though, I feel like the fact that it's in straight C++ is a barrier for entry. So there's, it's almost the freedom that you can basically do whatever you want is kind of crippling in a way.
Yeah.
Because it's just like when I was, porting CodeJournal to Linux. There's Mono, there's Java, there's Qt, there's the Python GTK thing, there's Vala.
It almost seems like you got to be. So for me, I've always found like it's just you spend a ton of time sort of coming to the best solution, and it's like one of these things where you can eventually find you'll whittle it all down to, okay, this is the path I need to take, but it takes a long time.
Yeah, it does. And what I think is going to happen, because I was doing some of this last night and this morning, and I just came to the same place. I mean, okay, some things have changed, right? Mono's definitely out, but I learned that one through pain. Java Swing is probably not an appropriate solution for anything. So, but there's still a whole universe, literally, of options there. Especially since I'm not going to be terribly concerned with appeasing any one vendor, right? Any one, how do you say, distributor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's strange. I mean, to be honest, if there was a good Objective-C toolchain, I'd probably just use that. But there's not.
Well, yeah, that would probably work pretty well for you.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, what I really want is what Objective-C is. I want C with object orientation, right? Or Smalltalk, but...
I feel like I haven't heard anything from you that tells me there's a lot of benefit to you switching to Linux over using the Mac then. Unless it's specifically for building something, because if you've got the Unix toolset on the Mac and you've got Xcode on the Mac and the applications like the email that you want on the Mac, what's going to keep you on Linux?
So part of it is just interest, right? I've liked Linux for a long time. Part of it is just business. Macs are very expensive.
Yeah, there is that. And it's also, it is enjoyable when you sit down and use a system you are excited to use. Like it makes you, I don't want to say more productive, but it makes you more likely to sit there and get some work done because, you're enjoying the experience.
Well, there's also a side of, there are a few things though I'm probably not going to edit the interface much, the fact that I can makes me a little happier.
Yeah. You should get download. I think it's in the Software Center. You have to find that again. Called Unity Tweak, which lets you tweak a few things like size of the icons and transparencies and stuff like that.
One toolchain that's pretty Linux specific is Vala, and I'm somewhat interested in that. But the problem is, it's of course seems to be Linux only. I know somebody corrected me last week on that, but I'm not sure how that works. I mean, I get that it compiles into C, which then compiles into binary. I just don't. I don't know what the toolchain is, right? And that's the problem. So
I'd love to do an episode in the future on Vala. I think that'd be really.
I mean, I've written some Vala, but I've only ever written it specifically for Linux, so I don't know how portable it is. And Vala is a nice language. Vala is very.
Maybe some folks could send in their experience with that. Coder Radio at JupiterBroadcasting.com, because I've been really curious about Vala myself. What was it? Something interesting just came out recently that was all written in Vala. I can't remember what it is now. But something I really like the hell out of. Oh, I know Elementary OS uses the crap out of Vala.
Well, apparently there's a Vala IDE now.
Oh, I'll Google that right now. Do you remember what it was called?
Vala IDE.
Well, that's a good name. That's
yeah.
Here it is. Here it is on the wiki. Let's see here. Vala tools. It doesn't look like they have any screenshots. They you can also use Genie of Vala IDE. There's a link to it. Mono develop Vala toys for gedit. That's cool. NetBeans or there's also a plugin for TextMate. Let's see here. Vala Vala IDE in Launchpad. So they've got.
What, do you just have to download it blind? They don't have any screenshots.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any screenshots exactly. But I was looking. They might have a PPA for you. So that's something.
So anyone who's ever used the Vala IDE, let me know, because I feel like that's the one thing that the Linux desktop space is really missing.
Yeah.
Yes, Qt is awesome, right? But Qt's also in C++. And
you got mono develop.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, right. I don't know. I mean, again, this is all just talk for now. This is all kind of
speculation, consideration, things you're mulling over. Could be an interesting 2014 for you, Mr. Dominic.
It could be, or I could go broke.
Yeah. Well, you won't go broke as long as you're buying cheaper hardware. Maybe you'll make up for it in loss of sales with cheaper hardware.
Yeah. My good buddy Zane is telling me that Vala has a Sublime Text plugin, so I'm pretty much sold.
Yeah, done.
And that was easy.
So, I feel like the workflow topic. I feel like we just scratched the surface this week.
I feel like we did. Yeah, we ended up getting upset, and you know how that goes.
Yeah, and the workflow is changing too, right? Because both of us are making a transition right now. I have switched over all of the encoding for Jupiter Broadcasting, except for one or two things on occasion, to Linux, and it's been really great because of the command line interface. I've just scripted. I just broke down and wrote a bash script, and it's awesome. And so I'm moving all that stuff over, and it's like I might get down to maybe one Mac, maybe two, one for the Wirecast machine and one for the Final Cut machine, and then the rest of all post-production will be done under Linux, and that's going to be really cool. There's been some recent tools that I've gotten my hands on that have made that a little easier too, so that's nice. So I just covered one of them actually yesterday in the Linux Action Show. I think it's good times. I think it's a slowly but surely thing. I don't think 2013 is the year I dropped the Mac. I'm not even sure if 2014 will be, but I'd be surprised if in 2015 we don't have it all. Well, we'll see. We'll see. It all depends on the editing. Maybe I'll just quit doing video.
Hey, that'll solve your problem.
It would. Yeah. It also would make the post-production time for these shows about 15 minutes instead of 2 hours. So that would be really something. The networks that only do MP3s and then they take days to release their shows, I don't know what the hell they're doing. Because it takes me 15 minutes.
Well, obviously they're not working, right? Like
yeah, they need to improve their workflow.
Yes.
Well,
and maybe we'll have to revisit this because we really did get off the track, but
well, the workflow is a big topic, and one of the things that I have found when you decide to talk about the workflow, it's almost best to think of it like you're training somebody and walking them through how to do something, so that way, otherwise it's just what I do, right? I don't think of it as a workflow. I just think of what tools I use to get my job done.
Yeah.
But we covered a few of them. I think we now. Did you want to recommend that book that you've been reading?
Yeah, Microsoft Rebooted. It's pretty cool.
Microsoft Rebooted. All right. Well, I'll put a link to Microsoft Rebooted in the show notes. This is sort of like a look back at what happened and sort of where they've gone from there, kind of a thing. I like it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Hit Control-Alt-Delete. How Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer reinvented their company.
Exactly.
Interesting at this point in time. That's an interesting perspective. All right, well, we got lots of things you can give us feedback on, so hit that contact link and choose Coder Radio or email us, coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com. Mr. Dominic, where should people find you throughout the week?
They should find me at dominicm.com and Dominuco at Twitter.
That's easy enough. We'll have links to those things in the show notes. Now join us, won't you, on Mondays live over at jblive.tv at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, or you can download the show Monday afternoons over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. Don't forget, if you love the show, give us a rating or a plug. Whoa, there goes the mic. Wherever
throw
you
an iPhone.
throw an iPhone. Wherever you watch the show, we always appreciate it. And also, you can participate in our subreddit at coderradio.reddit.com. All right, everyone, thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of Coder Radio. See you right back here next week.